It's a Tuesday morning, and Sophia is sitting in her car in the parking garage at work. She got there 4 minutes early, which never happens, and now she's using those 4 minutes to do something she almost never does. She opened her banking app. All of them. Checking, savings, the 401k she set up 18 months ago when her coworker wouldn't stop talking about it, and the Robinhood account she downloaded in 2021 during the meme stock phase and mostly forgot about. She's adding it all up. Sophia is 29. She'll be 30 in 6 weeks. She makes $67,000 a year at a marketing firm in a mid-sized city. She has no credit card debt. She paid it off last year and felt genuinely proud of herself for 3 weeks before a car repair and a flight home for a family thing quietly put $800 back on the card. She has student loans. She has a car payment. She has a gym membership she uses and another one she keeps meaning to cancel. The number she arrives at sitting in that parking garage with the engine still running is $23,400. That's everything, all of it combined. The checking account, the small savings buffer, the 401k, the Robinhood account with its 3 shares of a company she can't remember choosing, $23,400. She sits with that number for a moment. Then she opens Instagram, where 3 people she went to college with have posted house photos in the last 2 months. Then she closes Instagram. Then she goes to work. Here's what Sophia doesn't know sitting in that parking garage. She doesn't know where she actually stands. She doesn't know if $23,400 at 29 is a crisis or completely normal or somewhere in between. She doesn't know what the person sitting 2 desks away from her has saved, or what the actual median looks like for someone her age, or whether the path she's on leads somewhere reasonable or somewhere she should be genuinely worried about. She just has the number and the feeling. And the feeling isn't great. This video is going to give Sophia and everyone in her position the actual picture. The real numbers, broken down honestly, with the context that makes them meaningful and the specific steps that change the trajectory, starting today. My name is Daniel. Let's find out exactly where the average 30-year-old actually stands in 2026. The number you've probably seen and why it's wrong. Let's start where we always have to start when talking about financial averages. The Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances puts the average net worth of Americans under 35 at approximately $76,000. $76,000. If you're 29 or 30 and your number is nowhere near that, you just felt something drop in your stomach. Maybe you closed the tab last time you saw that statistic. Maybe you filed it under "I'm terrible with money" and moved on. Here's what you actually need to know. That number is nearly meaningless as a personal benchmark. And the reason it's meaningless is the same reason it's always meaningless when financial media throws averages at you. The average is destroyed by the people at the top. When you calculate an average net worth, you add up every single person's net worth and divide by the count. A 34-year-old tech founder who sold a startup for $40 million is in the same calculation as the 28-year-old working 2 jobs and carrying $30,000 in student debt. The billionaire's 32-year-old kid is in there. The person who inherited a commercial property at 26 is in there. All of them drag the average upward into a number that represents almost nobody's actual experience. The median is the number that matters. The median is what you get when you line up every single person from least to most wealthy and find the one standing exactly in the middle. That person is your real benchmark. That person is your actual neighbor, your actual coworker, the actual person your age living an actual life in the actual economy. The median net worth for Americans under 35 in 2026? $13,900. Not $76,000, $13,900. Sophia, sitting in her parking garage with $23,400, is actually doing better than the median American her age. She doesn't know that. The feeling she has, The quiet anxiety of not being where she thinks she should be is based entirely on a comparison to a number that's been inflated by people who are statistical outliers, not realistic benchmarks. This matters enormously because the decisions people make from a place of, I'm so far behind, are different from the decisions they make from a place of, I understand where I actually stand, and here's what I need to do. The first produces paralysis and avoidance. The second produces action. So let's get to action. But first, let's look at the full picture. What the average 30-year-old actually has. Here's the complete breakdown of where Americans in their late 20s and early 30s actually stand in 2026 across every major financial category. Net worth distribution. Bottom 25%, negative net worth. They owe more than they own. Bottom 50%, under $13,900. Median, approximately $13,900. Top 25%, approximately $100,000. Top 10%, approximately $220,000. Top 5%, approximately $400,000 plus. Let those numbers sit for a moment. A quarter of Americans under 35 have negative net worth. Not zero, negative. They owe more than they own. And another quarter are somewhere between $0 and $13,900. Half of all Americans under 35 have less than $14,000 in total net worth. Savings and checking. The median savings account balance for Americans in their late 20s is approximately $3,240. The median checking account balance is approximately $2,100. Combined, the typical person your age has roughly $5,000 in liquid, accessible money. Retirement accounts. The median 401k balance for Americans aged 25 to 34 is approximately $14,130. But here's the more revealing number. Nearly 40% of people in this age group have no retirement savings at all. Zero. Not a small amount. Nothing. Of those who do have retirement savings, the average contribution rate is 7.3% of income, which sounds reasonable until you compare it to what's actually needed to retire comfortably. Debt. This is where the picture gets complicated for the typical 30-year-old. The average total debt for Americans aged 25 to 34 is approximately $78,396. Broken down, student loans average $33,272 outstanding. Auto loans average $19,100. Credit card debt average $4,322 at 21% plus interest. Personal loans average $11,000. The net worth picture for most people in their early 30s isn't just about what they have, it's about what they owe. And what most people owe is substantial, often exceeding what they own by a significant margin, especially if student debt is factored in. The retirement gap that should concern you. Here's the benchmark that financial advisors use as a rough guideline. Age 30, you should have approximately 1 times your annual salary saved in retirement accounts. If you earn $67,000 like Sofia, the benchmark suggests $67,000 in retirement savings by 30. The median retirement savings for Americans aged 25 to 34 is $14,130. That's not 1 time salary. That's roughly 1/5 of 1 time salary for someone at the median income. And here's why this matters so specifically at 30. The retirement savings you accumulate between 25 and 35 are the most valuable dollars you will ever save. Not because of how much you save, because of how long they compound. A dollar invested at 25 has 40 years to grow before a standard retirement age of 65. At 7% average annual return, that dollar becomes approximately $14.97. A dollar invested at 35 has 30 years. It becomes $7.61. The same dollar, invested 10 years later, produces roughly half the retirement wealth. The gap between where most 30-year-olds actually are in retirement savings and where the math says they should be isn't just a number problem. It's a time problem. Every year that passes without meaningful retirement contributions is a year of compounding that never gets recovered. This isn't meant to create panic. Panic produces paralysis. This is meant to create urgency, the specific, productive kind that leads to opening the 401k app tonight and bumping up the contribution rate. The student loan reality. It is impossible to talk honestly about the financial position of the average 30-year-old in 2026 without talking about student debt, because for a significant portion of this generation, student debt is the single largest factor shaping their net worth picture. The average student loan balance for borrowers in their late 20s and early 30s is approximately $33,272, but that average conceals enormous variation. Graduate and professional degree holders frequently carry $80,000 to $150,000 or more. Medical and law school graduates can carry $200,000 to $300,000. Here's what makes student debt particularly damaging to net worth at this life stage. It consumes the cash flow that would otherwise go to wealth building during the highest compounding years of a person's financial life. Someone making $1,100 in monthly student loan payments is not making $1,100 in monthly retirement contributions. That $1,100 per month invested from age 25 to 65 at 7% would produce approximately $2.90 million. The student loan payment produces a degree, which hopefully produces income, but the compounding opportunity cost is real and significant. This doesn't mean student loans were necessarily the wrong decision. For many careers, the income premium from a degree exceeds the cost of the debt over a lifetime. But it does mean that the 30-year-old carrying significant student debt is playing a fundamentally more difficult financial game than the one who isn't, and needs to account for that reality in their planning. The housing trap of this generation. Here's something that's specifically true of people who are 28 to 32 in 2026 that wasn't true for previous generations at the same age. The primary wealth-building mechanism of the American middle class, homeownership, is increasingly out of reach at exactly the age when it used to be accessible. In 1990, the median first-time homebuyer was 28 years old. Today, the median first-time homebuyer is 38 years old. That's a decade of delay, a decade during which previous generations were building equity that compounded into retirement security. The median home price nationally is approximately $418,000. At current mortgage rates around 6.5% with 10% down, the monthly payment on a $376,200 mortgage is approximately $2,378. To qualify comfortably, keeping housing below 28% of gross income, a buyer needs to earn approximately $102,000 per year. The median income for Americans aged 25 to 34 is approximately $58,000. The income required to comfortably buy the median home is $44,000 more than the median income of people who are supposed to be buying it. This isn't a personal failing of a generation that can't save. This is a structural mismatch between housing prices and income that has been building for 15 years and that no individual decision fully solves. For the average 30-year-old, this means one of three things: delay homeownership until income catches up, buy in a lower-cost market, or accept a higher housing cost burden than previous generations did. None of these options is free. All of them have real financial implications for long-term wealth accumulation. What separates the top 25% at 30? Let's talk about who's in the top 25% at age 30. Approximately $100,000 in net worth, and what got them there. Because this isn't primarily a story about income. They started investing early. The single biggest differentiator between people in the top quartile of net worth at 30 and everyone else is not income, it's when they started investing. People with $100,000 plus in net worth at 30 almost universally started contributing to retirement accounts in their first job out of school. The compounding from 4 to 8 years of early contributions explains a significant portion of the gap. They kept fixed costs low, housing costs below 30% of income, a used car or no car, no lifestyle inflation when income grew. The person in the top 25% at 30 frequently doesn't look wealthy in any visible way. They drive a normal car. They live in a normal apartment. They just have a savings rate that's consistently higher than their peers. They avoided consumer debt, credit card balances, high-interest personal loans, financing furniture and electronics. These habits compound against wealth building. The top 25% at 30 either never started these habits or eliminated them early. They captured the employer match. Every dollar of employer match that wasn't captured is a dollar of free money that was turned down. People in the top quartile almost universally contribute at least enough to capture the full match from their first year of employment. They got some form of early advantage. This is the honest part. Many people in the top quartile at 30 receive some form of financial assistance: parents who paid for college, a family gift toward a down payment, the ability to live at home rent-free while saving, an inheritance that provided starting capital. This isn't universal, but it's more common than the financial self-improvement industry likes to acknowledge. Sofia's Monday morning plan. Let's go back to Sofia in the parking garage. She has $23,400. She's above the median for her age, but she has student loans, a car payment, and a retirement account that's behind where it needs to be. She has 6 weeks until she's 30, which is not a financial deadline, but does feel like one. And that feeling, if channeled correctly, can be useful. Here's what Sofia does when she gets home that night. First, she calculates her actual net worth properly. Assets minus liabilities. The $23,400 in assets minus the $28,000 in student loans and $11,000 remaining on the car loan. Her real net worth is negative $15,600. It's also accurate. And accurate is the only starting point that leads somewhere. Second, she logs into her 401k and bumps her contribution from 4% to 6%, enough to capture the full employer match she's been leaving partially on the table. That's approximately $2,000 in free money per year she was walking away from. She sets up an automatic increase of 1% per year, so she never has to make this decision again. Third, she opens a high-yield savings account and sets up a $200 automatic transfer on payday. Not for investing, for the emergency fund she doesn't have. 3 months of expenses is the target. At $200 a month, it takes about a year. That's fine. The point is to start. Fourth, she makes a list of the debts ordered by interest rate. The credit card at 22% is first. She adds $150 a month to the minimum payment. At that rate, it's gone in 4 months. The total financial impact of these 4 decisions made on a Monday evening after a regular workday. By age 40, 10 years from now, Sofia's net worth is projected to be somewhere between $180,000 and $240,000, depending on market returns and income growth. Not from a dramatic income increase, not from a windfall, from 4 specific decisions that redirect money that was already leaving her account into directions that build something instead of nothing. Where you actually stand. Here's the honest scorecard. For age 30 in 2026. If your net worth is negative, you owe more than you own. You are in the bottom 25%, but you are also in genuinely normal territory for someone carrying student debt. The goal is not to feel bad about where you are. The goal is to understand it clearly and start moving in the right direction. If your net worth is between $0 and $14,000, you are around the medium. Exactly in the middle of all Americans your age. The feeling that everyone else is ahead of you is an illusion created by social media highlight reels and financial averages that don't represent real people. If your net worth is between $14,000 and $100,000, you are in the top half and moving toward the top quarter. You are doing meaningfully better than most people your age. Keep the habits that got you here and accelerate them. If your net worth is above $100,000 at 30, you are in the top 25%. Whatever you did to get here, early investing, low fixed costs, income growth, some form of family advantage, or all of the above, keep doing it and build on it. The only number that actually matters here, here's the thing about net worth at 30 that most financial content gets wrong. The number you have at 30 matters less than the trajectory you're on. Someone with $50,000 in net worth at 30 who is saving 20% of income and has no high-interest debt is on a better trajectory than someone with $80,000 in net worth who is saving 3% and carrying $8,000 in credit card debt. The first person's wealth is compounding in their favor. The second person's situation is working against them in ways that will be visible by 40. Net worth at 30 is a snapshot. Trajectory is the film. The snapshot tells you where you are. The trajectory tells you where you're going. Sofia doesn't need to have a perfect number at 30. She needs to be on the right trajectory. 4 decisions made tonight, put her on it. The trajectory does the rest. You don't need a perfect financial past. You need a better financial present than yesterday. That starts today. Now you know exactly where you stand.